A very warm welcome, Sally, again
Thank you.
to the Zoom room for this session. Hopefully some others will join us shortly. Yeah, let's just dive into today's teaching. I'm just going to share my screen. It's here. Just going to set the live stream quickly, which is, there we go. Okay, then just share my screen and we'll go straight into the teaching. Any thoughts on today's quote?
I choose to see my brother's sinlessness.
And the Course in Miracles quote. Okay, there we go. Let's just share my screen with you, and then you can have a read of the quote. Okay, so share the screen. All right, so you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can read the quote. This is from A Course in Miracles. It was actually a quote I shared as part of the quote I shared on Christmas Day, but it was quite a long quote, so I sort of took out half of it, and because it makes a very good point about total love.
Love must be total to give him welcome, for the presence of holiness creates the holiness that surrounds it. No fear can touch the host who cradles God in the time of Christ, for the host is as holy as the perfect innocence which he protects and whose power protects him.
So we're going to unpack that a bit. So there's actually some really deep meaning. Does that kind of resonate with you, or did you just read it and go, not quite?
I was pondering it a bit this morning. Yeah. No, I will carry on. You explain it in your words. That'll be interesting.
Okay. So I shared it as part of the longer quote on Christmas Day, as I said, but I thought it deserved its own spot as a headline quote, because it makes the point that your love must be total. And I think a lot of people don't really understand what total love means, but it's unconditional. Total means unconditional. There cannot be any condition, any fetter, any barrier or block to your love to be worthy of the name. Otherwise, it's not love, is it? So it's either total or it's not love at all. That's really the non-dual position of Yeshua in the Course in Miracles. So only this unconditional, all-encompassing, or divine love is really love, and everything else that may seem to be love is really fake. And he states this even more explicitly in Workbook Lesson 127. There is no love but God's. So there's no other kind of love but this kind of love, which a lot of people find very hard to accept, because we think that, well, I love my partner, I love my kids, I love my dog. But if it's not unconditional, like without exception, you love them, and there's no variation in that feeling, then it's not love, it's something else. That's what this teaching is saying, which sets a very high standard, saying, well, only the love of God, only this pure formless awareness of perfect love extended to others. When you are in that and you feel that, you experience that totally, then that's love. Otherwise, whatever you're feeling is not love. In fact, it's a denial of love, subtle or not so subtle. So if you just reflect on this a little while, and then consider all the ways in which you've sought for other kinds of love. So let's do it as a little 2-minute meditation. Just close your eyes, breathe in, and just consider all the ways in which you sought for other kinds of love, which is what Yeshua calls special love, in A Course in Miracles. in your relationship with your parents, your siblings, if you have siblings, your chosen partner in life, your own children, friends, work colleagues, and anyone else with whom you've had any kind of sustained relationship. So just consider all of that. And just breathe in to create some space, some awareness. That is a sort of backdrop to this exercise. And ask yourself if your love for them was really unconditional. Or was it totally unaffected by whatever they said or did? That's really the test. Or did it vary? Was it really dependent on what they said or did? So it fluctuated, it varied. And if you're totally honest with yourself, you probably have to conclude that it wasn't really unconditional love. It wasn't total love. So just acknowledge that, because it's the first step in transforming these relationships into what Yeshua calls holy relationships, or wholly aware relationships in our translated language. And the second step is to radically forgive them, which means to completely let go of any misperception that they have done anything wrong. That's another way of looking at forgiveness. So you think someone's done something wrong, they've sinned, they're guilty, they deserve to be punishment, they deserve punishment. But actually you have to collapse that idea, because that idea is the core of the ego. So just bring to mind someone who there's still some of that going on, some kind of perception that they've done something wrong, still a sin in your mind, you think they're guilty. Maybe there's actually resentment, anger, you think they should be punished. Just be totally honest with yourself. Breathe into all of that. Nice deep breath into your heart center. This is where the block is to the awareness of love's presence. So you breathe this love and light in to that spacious awareness that's in your heart. And just be willing to let go of all these blocks. You do not want to perceive them as sinful and guilty and deserving of punishment, because it means that that thought system is real in your own mind. And it means that you're believing that you are sinful and guilty and deserving of punishment. You cannot believe of someone else what you don't believe about yourself. The ego tells you can, but by the law of mind, which it always extends outwards, you cannot. If you see someone else as sinful, guilty, deserving of punishment, you must secretly believe the same of you, yourself. So only when you can completely let go of that misperception can you be free yourself. So acknowledge that, and now just choose to let it go once and for all. Just blow it all out, the breeze of your breath, to the nothingness that it really is. Just letting it all go, forgiving it all away, surrendering it, whatever terminology you want to use. That nothing ever happened, nothing ever went wrong, no one did anything wrong, therefore everyone is innocent in the situation, including you. And this frees your mind to love them as personal people without the conditions that the belief in sin and guilt always imposes. So sin and guilt are conditional by nature. They create blocks to the awareness of love's presence. Those blocks become the conditions for your love. Or if someone just behaved better and they didn't do this and this and this, they changed their behavior and they became nicer, then I could love them. But as it stands, I can't, because I can only see the sin and the guilt in them. And that becomes a block to your own awareness of love's presence. So that's why you've got to let go of the idea of sin, guilt, punishment, sacrifice, these ideas, because those are the blocks to your own awareness of love's presence. Stand between you and your true awareness, your own true self, and God, which is pure formless awareness of perfect love. So it's really, when you let go, it's about letting go of your negativity, your own blocks to the awareness of love's presence that are triggered by someone or something else. So you judge someone or something else, you project your own guilt and fear and anger and hatred onto them. And sin and guilt projected outwards in an attempt to get rid of it, because you don't want to accept it. And the problem is that you don't really get rid of it by blaming anyone else, accusing, blaming, complaining, attacking. You're really just reinforcing the idea that sin and guilt and all of its horrific consequences are real. So just acknowledge all of that. Intellectually you can know that, but it's really about making a decision, conscious decision to let go, because you realize there's no other option. There's no other option that's sane. If you want to hold on to sin and guilt and the ego, then you must live in a hellish world where sin and guilt seem to be very real. They seem to be able to hurt you and punish you and attack you and ultimately kill you. And so you live in a world of suffering and misery and death as a result of this tiny mad idea. It's so entrenched in our psyches that most people don't even know that they're doing it. They just judge and they project their sin and guilt unconsciously onto everyone and everything, and they wonder why they're never happy and they can't love. So I'm going to read today's quote again, and maybe this will just help you to understand this idea a bit better. So this is in the translated form, alternative language. So it just says, love must be unconditional to give it welcome. In other words, it's not unconditional, you're not welcoming love. In fact, you're denying it. For the presence of pure formless awareness, which was holiness, the original, extends the holiness or the pure formless awareness that surrounds perfect love. It's about extending this awareness. You have an awareness, pure formless awareness, and that surrounds love. That is the essence of love. Perfect love. No fear can touch the self that gives rise to pure formless awareness, perfect love. The self is the Christ. Nothing can touch this self that leads you to this experience of pure formless awareness, perfect love. That's what it's just saying. In the time of this true self. Remember, this quote was about Christmas. So Christ, Mass, it's the time of the awakening to this true self, symbol of that coming into the world. That's what Christmas really symbolizes. Well, this self, this Christ self, he is as wholly aware as perfect innocence, which it fosters, and whose power supports it. So just reflect on all of that. You have one self, the Christ self, and that leads you to God, pure formless awareness, perfect love. And the one self asks you to perceive differently, to correct your perception of everyone and everything. So if you hold any grievances towards anyone or anything, that one self is asking you to let them go. And just realize the truth that you are one with them. So if you're perfectly one with everyone and everything, how can there be sin and guilt? How can anyone have done something wrong? It would imply that there's something gone wrong in perfect love, which is impossible. And so just breathe in on the truth of this, breathe in this power, light. We'll move straight into a meditation on today's lessons. So just remind yourself of today's lesson. I choose to see my brother's sinlessness. Or alternatively, I choose to see everyone's innocence. Choose to perceive everyone's innocence. And make that choice now consciously. Breathe in on it. Connect with that innocence. It's always there, never not there. Listen to this commentary on this key idea from Yeshua. It says forgiveness or letting go is a choice. I never see my brother. I never perceive anyone as they really are. But that is far beyond perception. What I see in him, what I perceive in others, is merely what I wish to see. So I see what I want to see. I perceive what I want to perceive. That's what he's saying. Because it stands for what I want to be the truth. However much I seem to be impelled by outside happenings, events, circumstances, it is to this alone that I respond. Okay, so saying, forget all the distractions of outside circumstances that seem to justify your misperceptions. It's really, you only perceive what you want to perceive. Always a choice. So I choose to see or to perceive what I would look upon, what I choose to focus on, right? Choose to perceive what I choose to focus on. Seems to be self-evident, but often the self-evident needs to be pointed out to us. And this I see, and only this. So I perceive only this, because that's what I'm choosing. My brother's sinlessness, everyone's innocence, shows me that I would look upon my own. So everyone's innocence shows me my own innocence. And having chosen to behold my brother in its holy light, having chosen to perceive everyone in its whole awareness, it is inevitable that I do perceive it. You must see it, you must perceive it if you choose to. That's how it works. Perception is a result of choice. Perception is not a fact, but perception is a result of an interpretation and a choice. So now just say this prayer. Breathe in again. Say, what could restore your memory to me except to see my brother's sinlessness, except to perceive everyone's innocence, his holiness, everyone's pure formless awareness. Reminds me that he was created one with me. Prefer the alternative. The pure formless awareness reminds me that they are extended as one with me. and like myself. And there I find myself. And in your son or extension, I find the memory of you as well. And so Yeshua's saying, as we see others' innocence, we let go of sin and guilt, and we see only their innocence. And we start to come into an awareness of God. Perfect, pure, formless awareness. Pure, formless awareness of perfect love. And so it is said, and so it is done. So just rest here for a few moments. Breathing in and out through your nose, observing the breath flowing into the nostrils and out of the nostrils. Nowhere else to go, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, just pretty relax and be still. Surrender into this deep peace and stillness. And the next couple of minutes of deep silence, just experience the innocence in your brothers as your own pure formless awareness of perfect love. As you perceive them correctly, and you perceive from Christ, your true self, and must extend afterwards to all your brothers. So let that extension happen now. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, else to think about. Just breathe, relax, and be still for the next couple of minutes of deep silence. Any thoughts come in, seemingly disturb this peace. And thoughts of guilt and sin may be returning. Flicker of anger, resentment, frustration, anything that's not pure formless awareness, perfect love. You just notice that and remind yourself today's idea again that choose to perceive everyone's innocence, see my brother's sinlessness in this and every situation. choose to perceive from my pure formless awareness of perfect love. I perceive as what I am, can perceive them correctly. If I deny my true identity and I want to believe that I'm separate, self-limited, sinful, guilty, then I must perceive them as being the same. That's the fundamental law of perception. As I see others, so I will see myself. So just sink inwards, blow it all out. Breathe in first to the innocence, purity, the light, truth. Just dissipating any dark clouds, and you just blow it all away like a dark cloud or black smoke. The breeze of your breath, it's going, gone. To the nothingness that it really is. Letting it all go. Surrendering into the deep peace and stillness. Peace of God, it's been called by Apostle Paul, that surpasses all understanding. So just surrender into that peace for another minute or so of deep silence. And so just gently coming back from this deep state into an awareness of the body and the breath and the senses and the world. And on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, the subtle flow there and through the nostrils. And you pause at the top of the inhale, you smile, breathing in, and just scan your mind again. So just noticing any thoughts, any emotions, related body sensations, particularly anything that feels negative, limiting, attractive, constricting in any way. And any judgments, any grievances, any of that, just kind of Let go of all of that. One more time, blow it all out. The breeze of your breath by saying, I choose to see only my brother's sinlessness, or I choose to perceive everyone's innocence. Blow it away like dark clouds, just leaving mind, your body, your energy system going, gone. Blow it all out, pull the lower stomach into the spine. There's the energy subside back down from the crown of your head down the front channel of your body, coming to rest in your lower stomach and groin. On the count of 2, notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair and your feet touching the ground. Notice what you're feeling with your hands touching, maybe with your hands, maybe there's a subtle flow of air on your skin. Breathe in again, breathe that air in. Notice any smell in your nose. Maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth. And notice what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Just noticing all these things from this very still, calm, and surrendered state of mind. So no judgment of any of your sense perceptions. Maybe hearing, touching, tasting, feeling, and seeing doesn't really mean anything. So you can open your eyes now on the count of 3 and just look around and notice that this deeper awareness, hopefully you connected with in the last 20 minutes, quite deeply is still there. Look at any object. That awareness is there. If you're not naming it, judging it, labeling it, it's there. And you look at something else, same awareness. The mind's not creating a story about it, then have exactly the same awareness, irrespective of what you're looking at. So just practice that with half a dozen things. You need to look at them for a couple of seconds each and move on and notice that awareness is constant, underlying everything that you perceive with your body's eyes and your senses. And so it's training your mind that awareness is always there, even when you're in the domain of perception. It hasn't really gone anywhere. So how can it? It's your fundamental awareness. Another name for which is innocence, which is the subject of today's lesson. And choose to perceive everyone's innocence means that you connect with that awareness. You stay in that awareness. You realize everyone's true nature is this awareness, pure formless awareness, perfect love. We call it all God. So that brings us to the end of the meditation and our little power half hour, which was 33 minutes. That's not too bad. So we'll go into a little bit of expression now, if you want to. So anything to share?
Yeah, what was coming up in the meditation was quite interesting. It was, I have been practicing recently to unconditionally love people, people generally, but it came to food for me, that about forgiving food for imagining any wrongdoing, that food could make me fat or unwell or harm me in any way. And so I was just investigating the guilt and sin of around food. And
interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was a really interesting journey, because intellectually I knew, but there was still something there for me. And I was pondering visiting my son this afternoon. He's not doing very well, and I was thinking, I'll take him fruit, because that's the innocent food. But there was definitely a feeling that there was guilt connected with chocolate or crisps or other foods. And so that was a very interesting exploration. So I've let it go of it all. It's all love, and I love it all, and it's all just neutral, and I don't need it, and I don't have a story about it. Well, that's very interesting.
Well, I think that, the biggest killer is guilt and sin. So if you're going to, eat that stuff, then at least don't feel guilty about it, because that's going to make it,
Yeah.
that's going to make it much worse.
Yeah,
Um,
whereas you're eating sin and guilt and hate. And
mm,
some diets do that, don't they? I don't know if you've come across it. I don't know, is it Weight Watchers or something? And they say you have so many sins a day that you can have. So
yeah,
you're allowed these sins that are certain, no-go foods, which is just reinforcing the sin, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah, well, any perception of something as wrong, bad, evil, is part of that whole, well, something's gone wrong, hasn't it? In perfect love, there's something that's gone wrong, and this, whatever it is, becomes a symbol of it.
Mm.
So it's about cleaning our minds completely, and it's not just people. Relationships are a big area, obviously, but food, substances. A lot of people, you have a relationship with a substance,
Mm.
with food, with other things, that if it's characterized by sin and guilt, it's not going to be healthy. It's gonna be very damaging. I choose to perceive everyone's innocence. So, because you do that doesn't mean you then just go and eat anything necessarily, but you just corrected your perception. There's nothing ultimately that is evil or bad. Certain foods have a certain effect on the body, seemingly, but
I noticed
it's
over Christmas that, I was investigating the stories we have around food at Christmas, and there was some food, I can't remember what it was, something like tortilla crisps or something or other, that was laying on the side. And I thought, oh, I haven't eaten something like that for years. Try it out. And I had one or two, and it was like, oh my God, it's like eating sawdust. But I think it's the story of it was like it was a treat, it was special, it was a party food, was no longer there. So it was neutral. So I was very present with the experience, and it was gunky and sticky and just
you're
really
like, this
unpleasant.
isn't really nice at all.
No.
Mm.
And there was also an experiment with ice cream. I was like, really, in a neutral mind, what is ice cream? It was just sweet, liquidy, cold stuff. So it didn't hold any temptation. But, if you grow up with it from childhood with the story, it's a special treat. You can have it on holiday when you're at the beach or something. It comes with that story that overlays the actual experience of it. So, this leads on to my Christmas experiment. Yeah, fascinating.
Very interesting. So you can really apply the principles of mindfulness, which are based on vipassana meditation. You just observe without a story. Okay, so when you taste something, what's the sensation on the taste, and you can be quite neutral about it. And then without the story around it, you might go, well, actually, just a sense of, like, why am I addicted to a sensation? It doesn't really do it for me. As soon as you bring awareness into anything, the addictive quality of it drops away.
Yeah,
You just
we're addicted to the story, aren't we? And how the story feels. So the story,
your interpretation of that, which is all bound up with your self-concept. So it's your story, which then you bring everything that you perceive into your story, don't you? And you weave it in, and you go, oh, well, ice cream has a place in my story, and other people, this person has this place in my story, and this food has this place in my story, and it all becomes bound up in this web, really, of the self-concept that the ego has spun around your true self. And so you can't get to your true self, because there's all these webs of deceit and lies that are not true, but you think are true. And so the undoing of that is, well, forgive or let go of your negative thought and emotion, Anything that's not perfect love, pure formless awareness of perfect love, is a negative thought and emotion. It negates the pure formless awareness of perfect love, hence negative. So all of that needs to be let go of. So you let go of the negating negative thoughts and emotion about everything and everyone, which is in your own mind. And that's what you're doing when you forgive them, because it's just triggered something in you that, blocked to the awareness of love's presence to arise. Well, that's what you need to let go of. So again, we've said this before, but forgiveness, it doesn't mean you're forgiving someone else for their sins that are real. It means you're letting go of your own negative thoughts and emotions that are triggered by them, which actually have nothing to do with them, really. It's your own stuff. I mean, it's all they might share in some of those beliefs, because we share in the ego, but they're your responsibility. They're not the other person's. And that's how you use everything to deconstruct the self-concept and free yourself from that web of intrigue and deceit that the ego spun in your mind, so that you can just be aware of what's true, pure formless awareness of perfect love, and everyone's innocence. You're innocent, everyone's innocent, because they are that awareness. Innocence and that awareness go hand in hand. And guilt and sin and the web of deceit and lies that the ego spun go hand in hand, because sin and guilt are a deception. So just another, this is another angle on forgiveness, looking for people's innocence, seeing only innocence, which means you must let go of guilt. See, I choose to perceive everyone's innocence means that you must let go of the misperception of sin and guilt, because you can't perceive innocence and guilt simultaneously. Which then, when you do that, must connect you with your own true awareness, your own innocence, because that's how it works. You then experience your innocence as you see someone else's innocence. You perceive their guilt, then you feel guilty. Mm-hmm. We don't like that feeling, so we project it onto others, and we say, oh, well, no, you're the guilty one. And we try and convince us that they're guilty. They're sinful, they're guilty, and they're the ones who are going to be punished by God. And that's really the primal mechanism behind all attack, is that desire to project guilt onto someone else and not take responsibility and say, okay, well, it's my own guilt, so it begins and ends here in my own mind. I'm not going to project it out anymore. I'm going to take the responsibility for it and let it go. That's the Holy Spirit's alternative to the ego. Yeah, so any thoughts on any of that?
No, all good.
All right, shall we have a look at the lesson? So let's go into the lesson. If you read the original, then the alternative, and then go into paragraph 1 and do the same thing with each sentence.
Sorry, so again, you want me to read the first part and then the...
Yeah, just each sentence and then the alternative.
Sorry, I'll
and then
set it further down.
Alternative.
I choose to see my brother's sinlessness. I choose to perceive everyone's innocence. Yeah, okay, got it.
So, slight difference. I think sinlessness kind of, he's talking about obviously being sinless, but the fact that sin is in it sort of makes sin a bit more real. So I think it's better to use the word innocence, to really undo it, rather than define it as sinless. Define it by the negative. Just define it by the positive, which is this innocence that characterizes pure formless awareness, perfect love.
I think innocence is a little unknown. I know when I've worked with people that feel very, very guilty, they're so focused on guilt, they don't even know what innocence is. They can't comprehend it. So it's interesting using the word, because I know it's been years, actually. I've had conversations with people about innocence, and it's like, no, can't comprehend that one.
Well, because it undoes sin and guilt. If you are innocent, then there's no sin or guilt. So it's just another symptom, really, of the denial of God. You can't comprehend innocence because you've denied your own true awareness, which is innocent. And really, if you say you're innocent, it's a huge thing for the mind to accept, because you're saying nothing then ever happened. You have to deny the entire dream to be innocent, don't you?
Yeah.
Otherwise, no, this happened, I've done stuff, other people have done stuff. And once you go down that rabbit hole, well, it's endless. The stories are endless. Well, you did this, you said this, and that's been going on for, lifetime after lifetime. We blame others, we blame ourselves, and the patterns continue. And that, those patterns of karma, sin, guilt, and then the effects of that. Those are what make up people's lives, human life. That's what drives most people's lives. That's why people's lives are often filled with so much pain and suffering, because what does sin and guilt demand but punishment? So then you're required to be punished, and things to come along to come and punish you, like illness and traumas, abandonment, rejection, divorce, business failures, financial troubles. All the troubles of life are really there to punish us for our sin of seemingly separating from God. Sounds ridiculous, really, when you say that, but that's the explanation. It's all self-punishment. It's been projected out, it's unconscious, so we don't know what we're doing anymore. But Yeshua is asking us to become conscious of that, and systematically let go of any of those false beliefs and sin and guilt and fear and attack, and the whole thought system that comes from sin and guilt, which is pretty awful. Let's have a look at today's. Just want to bring up that one. Looks like I might have closed it. I'll have to reopen it. Just the maybe it's here. Let's see. Let me just go and open it again. Just wanted to bring up that diagram, which we've looked at a lot, but it's worth having another look at it, because it shows us very clearly, what the sin and the guilt are. So where are we? Sent into hell. There we go. So as a result of that decision to be separate, we have and create a separate identity, which means we must deny oneness. We have the guilt and the sin for doing that. And we think that we've destroyed God or love or oneness, this pure formless awareness, which is the ultimate sin, and therefore we deserve to be punished. And that's then the mechanism of all illusions. That's what creates the fear, which gets projected out, guilt and fear outwards to miscreate a physical universe. And then all of the gains within that miscreation happen because of sin and guilt, because of an identity that is false. And so Yeshua is just saying, well, it's all false. Why do you believe in any of it? There is no separate self. Therefore, there is no sin and guilt. Therefore, there are no consequences to sin and guilt. None of it ever really happened. And that's the Holy Spirit's reinterpretation of the ego's dream. So you are completely innocent. In God, love, oneness, pure formless awareness, you are completely innocent because nothing ever happened. So you have to deny. The reason why people can't get their heads around that is because it's totally opposite to the ego's thought system. It denies all of this. If you are innocent, then none of this has ever happened. Then separation never happened. You never separated from God. You never did anything. No one did anything. Everyone's innocent, and the entire dream is gone. So it's a pretty big, big concept to wrap your head around. And that's why people have huge resistance to it. So it undoes their self-concept. They cannot be who they think they are if they're completely innocent. If you think about that, every self-concept is defined by things I've done wrong. What's gone wrong in my life? What have I done wrong? Or what has been done wrong to me? How have I been wrong? That's what defines your self-concept. That's what separates you from others. Sin and guilt. So claiming your innocence means letting go of all of that. Turning your mind to your true awareness. Okay. Any thoughts on that? Otherwise, let's go back to the lesson.
No, that's good.
Forgiveness is a choice.
Do you want me to do it one previous and one go down to the bottom one? So
yeah, I think let's do it line by line. Forgiveness is a choice. Letting go is a choice.
Yeah, forgiveness is a choice. Letting go is a choice. Yeah, and it's a choice a lot of people don't want to make. A lot of people don't want to let go. So it's a part of me that doesn't want to let go.
Yeah, well, that's why we're still here, because we have huge resistance to letting go, because we're letting go of our separate self, of our parent identity. And for a lot of people, that's just too scary. They prefer that identity than the abyss, the void of no self, which is incredibly scary for the separate self, because it ceases to exist there. But it remains a choice in every situation. You can choose to let go. That's always an available choice.
But sometimes it's the resistance to letting go that stops it, the resistance to the resistance.
So that's what you've got to then let go of, let go of the resistance to it, and accept, the simple truth that this is the only way. This is why it goes on and on about, look, this is the only way. There's no other way. You must fully let go, completely let go. Only total love will work. You can't have a little bit of love. I love you, but then you don't do what I think. So what I think you should be doing. So then I don't love you. You can't do that. It's not love then. You're in a delusion of love. It was never love. So you got to choose to let go of all the blocks to the awareness of love's presence to experience love again. Are you willing? Do you really want that, or do you prefer the ego? That's the choice. Okay, so number 2.
Yeah. I never see my brother as he is, for that is far beyond perception. I never perceive anyone as they really are, for that is far beyond perception.
So mind-blowing, really. So everyone I'm seeing, I'm not seeing them.
Well, you do when you
illusion of it.
You do when you get to the love. Well, kind of. I'm starting to see people as love and nothing else. So that's a new thing. And however much they might tell me they're ill or whatever, I just see them as perfect love. And that's not something I'm doing mentally. It's just naturally happened. It's really
It's a
interesting.
feeling. It's a feeling.
It's a knowing. Yeah, it's a feeling, a knowing. I can't get past that. I can't make up any stories beyond it. I just, I feel into it, and it's just love. That's all I can perceive of them. So, like I said, I've gone through this stage of letting go of anything that prevents me unconditionally loving everyone in my life or everyone I know, beyond that as well. But now it's moved on a notch to this next level. And it's very interesting because with my son, it's quite an interesting journey, because he's told me all week that he's ill, he's got COVID, he tells me, but all I can perceive is this perfect love. And not because I love him as a son, just beyond that, he is just love, and there's nothing wrong. And it's quite a strange feeling, really, because it's like my story doesn't match his story. It's like my story is definitely, he's perfect. It's just his love. That's what I can't see beyond that in any shape or form. And he's telling me he's in pain, and he's cough and feels achy and pain and all whatever. And it's like, no, you don't. I know you don't. You're just perfect. You're just whole and well. And the words don't do it justice, but the experience is very different than the past. And it's not like I'm trying to convince myself or him. It just is. And it's a funny feeling. I can't put it really into words. These things are not wordable, are they?
Wordable. That's a good word. Expressible, maybe. Well, I mean, then you're starting to really apply the course, because this is what he's asking us to do. Don't perceive any sin and guilt, any effects. If sin and guilt are not real, then the effects of it, which are things like sickness, illness, cannot be real. So don't perceive them as real. Even if someone's apparently suffering and they're going, oh, I'm this, you just don't really perceive it as real. And you remain in this awareness that they are perfect, whole, complete, innocent. It runs completely, contrary to the ego's thought system and to all the laws of this world. But Yeshua's saying to us, yes, all the laws of this world are made up and they're false. So you have to ultimately question them and let them go.
It was years ago when I was I learned EAM, and you could do this thing where you step into somebody's energy, and no, we're all one. That makes perfect sense, that you can step into the illusion of anybody's life. And so I stepped into Jesus's life, and looking through his eyes, it felt very, very real that he just saw everyone as perfect, as love. And you know that story, that's how he saw everyone. But when I was actually it's all a story, isn't it? But I felt like I was standing in his energy, perceiving the world from his eyes. And what he showed, or what I experienced through that experience, is exactly what I'm now living. And that was like several years ago. I did that. And now I'm doing it with my own eyes. It feels like I'm doing it with my own eyes. So it's interesting, isn't it? I hadn't thought of that until just then.
Well, it's Christ's vision. It's called Christ's vision.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really, Yeshua. He just had, he had this higher awareness, the Christ consciousness or awareness, and then the vision, the perception that comes from that is this, holy perception, whole awareness, just everything and everyone is perfect, and I can see nothing else. So it's amazing that you're experiencing that without effort. It just that's forgiveness is not necessary anymore when you get to that point.
No,
you don't need to forgive anymore, because then nothing ever happened. That's the whole point, isn't it? Forgiveness recognizes what you think has happened hasn't really happened, so there's really nothing to forgive. That's kind of the ultimate stage you want to get to.
Yeah, I was thinking this morning, you do all this New Year stuff, and I'd been on a workshop and they were talking about, so what do you want to do this year? What is it you want to achieve? And I'm like, what did I want to achieve last year? I didn't have anything in mind. This year, no, nothing. It's just like you just follow it step by step, don't you? But last year was the year of being able to unconditionally love people. Absolutely. It could be I know when I met you, it was unconditional love. It was like no one could, how could I put it? You could do no wrong in my eyes type thing. And that's the same with, a few people I had to clear on, but ultimately that's how it is, that if anybody said something about a neighbor, I remember having this moment where somebody was criticizing the neighbor and I was like, no, I absolutely unconditionally love him. And it's strange, isn't it, when you've got this totally different, it's like, don't know how to put it. But if anybody else says anything about somebody that I absolutely unconditionally love, it's like, no. It's like when you have a child and you unconditionally love the child, that they could do no wrong. It's just like that. And that's how it's obviously been experiencing it. Which is cool.
It feels like a violation of that love, which is what it is.
It's like somebody criticizing your child. It's like, no, they're innocent. Yeah.
What it's all doing is it's denying God. It's denying this presence of perfect love. All a violation of of that, which is your true self. So if you identify only with that, you perceive that anyone who is in the ego and is denying that in whatever way, shape, or form, criticism, judgment, condemnation is actually denying God, and that and you would perceive that, but ultimately the true letting go just overlooks that as well. Okay, I'm not going to acknowledge that, so because that's what you have to do. None of it matters. The original so-called sin of the person and the person criticizing them because they're making another error, and we see how the ego goes from error to error. Someone's done something or said something that was not in alignment with love, then someone else judges that, which is not in alignment with love, and then someone else judges that person for judgment. And so it goes. We judge people for their judgment. I remember one course teacher saying, someone come into the room and someone said, oh, who's that person? And he heard himself saying, wow, that person's very judgmental.
Yeah.
And then stopped and well, who's being judgmental then? I'm being judgmental right now in the moment because I'm judging the person as judgmental, and I'm not seeing the innocence right there. So it's all these subtle and not so subtle denials of love that really populate our lives.
I used to moan about my mother when she was alive so much, that she was so negative. But I was so negative about my mother being negative. It was funny.
Yeah, but you see that it's like a virus. The ego tries to perpetuate itself. So it's like someone's negative, and then you get negative about their negativity, and then you complain to someone else, who then it all then transmits, and then they feel negative and then they think it's justified to complain about someone, and they do it for and so it's just this thought virus that's trying to spread through people's minds and lives, and it's done a fairly good job of it, because it's why we have the world we do, which is filled with judgment and condemnation, and the idea of sin and guilt really is the foundation of its thought system. And there's only one way out of that. You have to deny it completely, which is what unconditional love is. There's no condition to your love. You've let it all go. There's no condition. You only see that person's innocence, whatever they've done in the dream, because you realize the dream's not real. The character in the dream that they seem to be is not real. So why are you judging a character that's not real? And that's the only way you're really going to do it. It's a radical forgiveness, which goes to the heart of the, well, does this actually exist? Is this actually real or not? That's the only way you're going to do it. If you make it real and then you try and forgive it, that's never going to work. Best you can do then is compassionate forgiveness, which we discussed the other day. Yeah. Okay, well, it's happened, but understand the person has suffered and they've had a tough life, so I can soften my judgment. I don't condemn them, but there's still going to be a perception in your mind of like this awareness of some kind of wrongdoing, isn't there? Some kind of sin.
But it's a step in the right direction.
It is a step in the right direction. Yeah. So if someone can do that and that's all they can do, I'd say, yeah, well, absolutely do that. It's why it's step 5 in the 10-step letting go process that I came up with, because it's kind of a halfway. Okay, if you can get there, then it's better than not getting anywhere. And then from there, maybe you can go on and go, okay, well, let's go, let's take it further, the next 5 steps, or okay, let's take it all the way to radical forgiveness, where it's completely undone, completely collapsed in my mind, in my perception of it. Ceases to have any reality.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where are we? I don't know. Number 3 or 4?
We're number 3. What I see in him, I think.
I see in him is merely
in him
what I wish to see, because it stands for what I want to be the truth. Alternatively, what I perceive in others is merely what I want to perceive, because it stands for what I want to be the truth. Yeah.
So I see what I want to see. Even if someone is, behaving in certain ways, I still have a choice about how I perceive that.
Yeah.
So the ultimate is, they're killing Yeshua, and he says, forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they do. He's made a conscious choice to perceive them in an innocent way. He's still accessing a pure formless awareness, and he's still seeing their innocence as you're appealing to the Father or the source. And he probably only said it because he knew that would be recorded and it would be a useful teaching for people. For him to say that in that extreme situation would be helpful. So that's why he said it. Although he wouldn't have needed to say it himself. He just, he knew they were innocent, but he had to express it. Otherwise, and it's probably one of the most famous things he ever said, famous lines, because in the extreme temptation to judge, he didn't. He said, no, forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they do. Which was the whole point, really. The whole point of the crucifixion was to show people, yes, it is possible in any situation, even in the most extreme situations, to let go of your judgment and still perceive correctly. That's what the crucifixion was demonstrating, and the resurrection just proved that there is no death. That whole thought system that led to death was not true. It can be transcended. So he taught us by example, and that final drama of his life, that was like really showing, okay, these teachings really are true, and they do apply even in the most extreme situation that the ego can come up with, because that was probably about the worst that the ego can come up with. He was betrayed, he was beaten, he was forced to carry his cross, nailed to the cross, died on this cross, drowning in his own body fluids. It doesn't get kind of more horrific than that, does it? That's kind of the worst that it can come up with, because it wasn't just death. It was like a slow, painful, horrific death, and publicly displayed, and all the humiliation and so on that went along with it. But he did it because he's showing us, well, look, you can always change your mind, even in these extreme temptations. So what's your excuse? Someone's cut you off in traffic, or has said something you didn't quite like. I mean, like, really? Like, you can't forgive them when Yeshua could forgive the people who actually crucified him, did these apparently horrible things to him, and killed him. That's that's what it's really. That's what the message of the crucifixion is really teaching us, which has got lost in Christianity because they said it's the egoic interpretation is, oh well, he was sacrificed and he had to die for our sins, which made the idea of sin and guilt and sacrifice real, and that's exactly what he died to show us was not true. So it's complete inversion of his teaching, and makes a mockery of what he was actually trying to teach through his whole life and that crucifixion drama that he went through. Okay, so what I see even others.
Number 4.
Yeah.
It is to this alone that I respond, however much I seem to be impelled by outside happenings. However much I seem to be impelled by outside events and circumstances, it is to this alone that I respond.
So I'm responding to my own desire. Really, that's why it's interesting. You look at the instrument for peace. The very core of it is desire, isn't it? Choose. And so, we choosing in every instance. We made a bad choice once upon a time to believe in separation, but now every moment we can choose again. And that's the level of the miracle. Choose again. So choose to see beyond the ego's illusions and only perceive the truth. Which is, he's stating here again.
Okay, number 5.
I
choose to see what I would look upon, and see this I see, and only this. Alternatively, I choose to perceive what I choose to focus on, and 'tis this I perceive, and only this.
So it's a fundamental law of perception. You choose to see what you will see what you choose to see, and we see that all the time. That's how it works. In a situation, if you ask, let's say, this happens often with police officers. Will tell you this. They ask for people's eyewitnesses' accounts of the same situation, and they get a different account from everyone. Because people will see different things depending on, they might have been standing in exactly the same place, like next to each other, but they'll give you different accounts of it, because you perceive it as you are thinking. You perceive it from your self-concept. So you interpret whatever's happening in a certain way, and you will focus on certain things and not see certain things, depending on how you wired up, your self-concept. And that's the law of perception. So therefore, perception, if that self-concept is not real, then perception can't be real. You see, it has to deconstruct with the self-concept. And the projection mechanism of the self is not real either. So the whole thing's illusion. Projection, perception, it's smoke and mirrors. I remember once having an experience, and it showed me this so clearly. I was watching a movie with a friend. So long before I studied any of this, but it really struck me because we watched the same scene in this movie. It's a movie with Demi Moore, Robert Redford, and Woody Harrelson. About what was it called? Can't remember the name. Quite an old movie. And the situation was that this couple had gone to Las Vegas to try and make some money. They were going to have their house repossessed. So they went, okay, well, let's take our last little bit of savings and we're going to go and we're going to try and win the money that we need to save our house. And, of course, they lose the money. But Robert Redford, who's a billionaire, happens to see Demi Moore as very attractive. And he makes them an offer. He says, I'll give you $1 million for one night with your wife. And so they agree, okay, well, we'll accept this, because it's going to save our house, and then he changes his mind, but it's too late, and it causes a ruction. Effectively, she stays with this billionaire for a while, and he's in despair. And so he's torn up his there's a picture of them, the two of them. He's torn it in half, and then he's pasted it back together again with tape, and you can see that. And he's passed out, he's drunk, and the sort of aide, second 2IC of the billionaire goes into his house, and he sees this, and he picks up the photo, and he kind of has a little smile. And, I was like, oh, it's understanding, he understands. He's smiling because he understands what the guy's gone through. And it's a smile of understanding and almost compassion. And my friend came away and said, that guy was such a bastard. And I said, why do you say he was a bastard? No, because he was mocking him. He was like laughing at him rather than a smile of understanding. It's the same situation and interpreted completely differently by two different people. And actually, our relationship didn't continue for very much longer. We fell out because it was just like we poles apart. He saw the world from the perspective of sin and guilt and condemnation. So he then had to perceive that situation from that perspective, didn't he? Of sin and guilt and condemnation. And so he saw that smile as, oh, he's mocking and he's condemning. And because, I wasn't not to say I'd completely let go of sin and guilt, that I didn't even know was in my mind, but a little bit more open, I didn't see it that way. I saw it as what I believe it was. I mean, who knows what the filmmakers intended, but it was a smile of understanding. He understood what the guy had gone through, and he just kind of went, okay, I understand, and I kind of have some compassion for you. So he wasn't mocking him or condemning him at all. But that was a classic example. Same situation, and two people perceive it completely differently based on their thought system. So, you see what you want to see. You perceive what you want to see based on your self-concept.
Yeah, I had that experience yesterday. Somebody gave me a review for my Airbnb, and they said they'd had a bad experience with me. I was attacking, demanding, and threatening. I think really.
Is this the same person we're talking about?
I don't think so. I was actually being kind, generous, and forgiving. But we all see it differently, and it's okay.
Yeah, well, so what they do then is they're going to project their stuff onto you. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So they will see that because that's in them, and then they project it onto you. And, it's completely untrue, but they will convince themselves that it's true. So it's a complete lie.
It was a good lesson. It was a good lesson. I just replied, that's not true.
Yeah. Well, what else can you say? It isn't true. You don't have to go into major defense. Just, okay, it's not true.
Yeah.
Or is that so? Eckhart Tolle tells a story of a Zen master who, the story goes, I don't know if it's true or not, but maybe it's just a teaching story, that his next door neighbors were a family, and it was a young girl, and she got pregnant, and she blamed the Zen master. She said, no, he's the one who did it. And so the parents come around irate, you did it. And he didn't say no, he just said, is that so? Like, no attempt to defend himself. So it said, well, we don't want the baby, it's yours, you take it. It's a shame on us, it's a disgrace, you take it. So they give him the baby, and he makes a plan, presumably, does what you need to do. You bottle feed it for a year, and then the girl sort of feels guilty, and she finally confesses to her parents that actually it wasn't the Zen master, it was the boy just down the road who did it. So they come back and they go, oh, no, we're so sorry. And he lost his reputation, and the whole village thought he was philanderer, so he didn't have any more people visiting him, and for a year he just took care of the baby. That's what became of his life. And then they come back to him and they say, oh, no, we're really sorry, can we have the baby back? And he says, oh, is that so? Gives the baby back. It's like no attempt to defend himself at all. Which the story is really there to teach that you can be defenseless and not respond. He could have, I suppose, also gone, well, no, I didn't do that, but without any emotional charge. It's like, okay, well, whatever, I'm just stating a fact, and if they disagree, it's like, okay, well, Fine. You want me to have the baby? Okay. Well, you want me to look after the baby? I'll look after the baby. No resistance. That's what the story is designed to teach. Okay. So number 6.
My brother's sinlessness shows me that I would look upon my own. Everyone's innocence shows me my own. It's nice.
Yeah, I think it's more direct, isn't it? Everyone's innocence shows me my own innocence. It's so obvious. I mean, but most people don't understand this, do they?
It's not
If I see others as innocent, then I will see myself as innocent. If I see them as guilty, then I will see myself as guilty. So I'm condemning myself. Like, why do you would think that's totally obvious, but it's actually, I would say, the majority of humanity have no idea about that simple principle.
No, you say it's simple, but it's not. It's certainly not obvious, is it?
Well, the illusion, I guess the illusion is shows you something else, doesn't it? It's convinced you. It's done a really good job of convincing you that that's not the case. But it's all a setup. It's a thought system projected out, perceived as real, and we've got so caught up in that we can't see beyond it. And we need a very clear, direct teaching like this to be able to do that. But it is, if you just consider it, you go, well, obviously, if I'm perceiving someone else as guilty, then I'm making guilt real. I'm feeling the guilt, and I'm just trying to project it onto them. I'm not feeling good. If you perceive guilt and sin anywhere, you don't feel good, do you? So who are you really condemning then? Because your own experience is less than loving. So you're condemning yourself to a less than loving experience, which it doesn't make any sense. You're just attacking yourself.
Jackie's just joining us. I'm just going to move in the other room.
Okay, welcome, Jackie.
Open the door. Sorry, we have cups of teas and phones and laptops to move house. Like moving house. Oh, Jackie, move house. That slipped out, didn't it? I'm not.
Yeah, back on the sofa.
Yeah, right. So we're up to number 6 or 7? 7. Up to 7.
Yeah. Do you want to read that, Jackie?
Yeah.
So read 7 in the original and then 7 in the alternative.
Okay. And I will see it, having chosen to behold my brother in its holy light. And having chosen to perceive everyone in its whole awareness, it is inevitable that I do perceive it.
They're really saying, if you see others, as we're talking about innocence, if you see innocence, previous sentence, everyone's innocence shows me my own. So if you choose to perceive innocence in someone, then you must perceive it in yourself. Chosen to perceive everyone in its whole awareness, it's inevitable that I do perceive it. Because you've chosen to. So, perception is a choice, not a fact. It's what you choose to perceive. Which we were just saying, most people don't know this. They think it's real. Perceive, and that's just how it is. I'm perceiving reality. No, you're perceiving what you choose to perceive. You're interpreting that situation, even if it appears to be terrible, someone's behaving badly, doing awful things, whatever. You're still making a choice as to how you perceive it. You don't have to perceive it in the way the ego wants you to perceive it. And that's the absolute essence of this teaching, and any authentic spiritual teaching says you have the choice in every moment. It doesn't matter what's happening, what's going on, how extreme it is. And there's been many examples of very extreme situations where people have exercised that power of choice. Yeshua probably being the greatest example of that. Crucifixion, he chooses to forgive them rather than to condemn them. Many people have experienced traumas and great trials, and they have chosen to let go or forgive rather than to judge. Nelson Mandela, good example. Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Viktor Frankl in the concentration camps. He could have been really bitter and twisted, and yet he made a choice to forgive to let go really of his own negativity, because you realize then, if I hold on to this, I'm making myself suffer. I'm denying my own innocence and my own purity, and I'm condemning myself to a life of suffering. And so, that's not a very clever thing to do. And these people who've done this to me, now they keep doing it to me over and over and over again in my own mind. So, it's like forever. If you stay rooted, let's say in that traumatic experience, like Viktor Frankl, 4 years in a concentration camp, every member of his family killed, and his wife. If you stay rooted in that, then your entire life is spent in the prison of the concentration camp, reliving that trauma over and over again. And so the Nazis then have ruined your entire life. He wouldn't allow them to do that. He said, you can keep me captive for 4 years. You can keep my body captive, but you cannot affect my mind. My mind is beyond your ability to control. And that's the power we all have. No matter what anyone's doing to you, they cannot force you to believe in their story, in what they want you to believe in. And that's the only freedom we really have. Which is that's what he's talking about here.
So maybe like somebody's ex who we feel that we are judging them, and we find them wrong. We're putting ourselves in prison, aren't we?
Yeah. If you the key thing is, you don't want to condemn anyone. So you can perceive that, look, this is not loving. This kind of behavior is not loving, kind behavior, and you can choose to not associate with it. But don't condemn them. Don't get lost in the misperception that they're guilty and that that's who they are, because it's not who they are. See, that's what the ego is always trying to do. It's to perpetuate a false self-concept in your mind. So you can do, like, if someone is harmful and they're trying to harm you, you can take appropriate action and say, no, okay, I'm not going to just allow myself to be harmed and abused and whatever. You can walk away. But perceptually, you don't make them guilty. And go, this person, and you don't feel threatened, and you don't project your guilt onto them. You don't do any of that. Just go, okay, that's the way they choose to behave. I'm gonna do this and this and this. But the emotional charge is gone. I'm not angry with them. I'm not upset. I'm not defensive. I'm not going, you bastard, how dare you? I'm going to get you back, revenge, none of that. It's just like, okay, I'm just in my own true awareness. I'm in my innocence. I see that person underneath this crazy cover that the ego's invented. Because really what's happened is that person's been possessed by the ego, completely possessed by this insane thought system. And their mind's been hijacked, and they have no free will anymore. They're just a slave to the ego. So they're actually in prison. They need help to be freed. Maybe that's not up to you to free them, but you can perceive them correctly. You always have the choice to perceive it correctly. So they are innocent, and so am I. And that's going to make your experience a whole lot better, because you're not going to be sucked into that really dark vortex. I mean, you've been there, Jackie. It's horrible. It's a dark vortex of sin and guilt and fear and attack and hatred and anger and defense and attack, and more of this on and on and on it goes. Yeah, and you're a slave to the ego. If you continuously thinking those thoughts, feeling those emotions, you are enslaved by this very dark entity, and you're playing the ego's game. That's all it. It's you're both puppets then of the ego, playing out this really insane game. And the only purpose of the game is to keep you separate in your little separated self-concept, suffering and ultimately dying. Oh, that's a good game to play. when you realize the insanity of it. It's like there's no point to it, there's no purpose to it, no meaning to it whatsoever.
So you're seeing them as innocent in their true self, presumably nothing to do with the ego self that's created all the havoc.
Yeah, I mean, the ego self. But what you're then doing, you see, by seeing them as innocent, is you're going, that ego self doesn't really exist. You deny its existence, which is the only way you're going to ever get out of this insane thought system. You must deny it completely. And you get the opportunity to do that when it's right in your face. It's like, okay, there's the worst of it coming at you. Okay, but I can still deny it. I don't have to believe in this. It's still not true, no matter what, what it invents. And, that's not easy, but you do that and everything else is a piece of cake. It's like, well, I've denied the totally insane, psychopathic, vengeful, hateful entity that's been shown to me. I've denied that it's real. So like everything else is a piece of cake. Like it's really easy because you've forgiven the worst.
Yeah.
So, that's the value of an extreme lesson.
I used to hear that phrase, all attack is self-attack, and I didn't really understand it. But it's just the same as all criticism is self-criticism then, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm making the illusion of the ego real in that situation. I criticize and I judge. I make something not right in my own mind. So something's gone wrong in my mind. There's then the misperception that sin and guilt are real. This false self-concept is very much there. And I'm separated from my own self and my own true awareness. And that's not a very nice state to be in. So I'm then attacking my own true reality by that criticism and that judgment. And that's so obvious once you see it, that it's like, oh my God, I've been such an idiot. I've just been hitting my head against the brick wall over and over and blaming the wall. And it's not the wall, it's me. It's my own intent to do this. And then the life pushes back and it hurts, and you go, oh, it's the wall, it's the external, but it's your decision to keep doing it that's the problem. And so again, in this lesson, he's saying, look, it's a decision. Forgiveness is a choice. You choose to see innocence or you choose to see guilt.
Yeah.
To see love or you choose to see fear. You can see either. You have that option in this dualistic reality. But you're never going to find happiness and peace unless you make the right choice.
Yeah.
So, here again, every lesson, make the right choice. Choose again. This one just about innocence, it's the same thing. You're choosing pure formless awareness of perfect love, but innocence is another pointer to that awareness.
Yeah.
And they're also addressing the idea of sin and guilt, which is a key component of the ego. That we must, over and over, he says, you've got to let go of all belief in sin and guilt, because those are the foundations of the ego's thought system. If you recall in our, where is it? I've got a couple of tabs open. I think it's in this one now. There we go. In this descent into hell, sin and guilt are right at the top. They underpin the separate self, because you think that you've denied love, you've destroyed God, destroyed love, in order to have the separate self. So you're guilty of this terrible crime, therefore you deserve to be punished. That's where it all comes from. So that underpins the separate self concept. And then from that sin and that guilt come all the other horrors of the ego. False expectations of punishment appearing real, which is fear. Attack, which then makes that fear seemingly real. So then it seems to be justified. And now we have this insane world of accusation, blame, complaint, attack, defense going on as a result of this projection of guilt outwards. And we believe that we're a victim of a cruel, unfair world, which is doing this to us. But it's all because we decided to be separate, and we decided to maintain that separation by believing in sin and guilt. That's why we're experiencing this. So Yeshua's saying, look, just wake up and realize that it's your decision. Whenever you judge anyone or anything as sinful or guilty, you again make a choice for the ego. And you choose to suffer again. Attack yourself and suffer, which is not smart at all.
Mhm.
Okay, so shall we move on to number 2? Has Sally gone? Has she gone for a walk or something?
She's gone to take a phone call. So, yeah,
Okay.
I'm back. So I read both. What could restore your memory to me except to see my brother's sinlessness? Can we do sentence by sentence? Hold on.
Yeah. I think it's better sentence by sentence, because then you get the translation, don't you? Of each. It's like, okay. So you're learning another language that way.
Yeah. What could restore your memory to me except to perceive everyone's innocence? His Holiness reminds me that he was created one with me and like myself. Their pure formless awareness reminds me that they are extended as one with me and like myself. In him, I find myself, and in your Son, I find the memory of you as well. In them, I find myself, and in your extension, I find the memory of you as well.
Okay, any thoughts on that?
Interesting, isn't it? So in perceiving everybody as innocence, there are no egoic judgments or blocks to the awareness of
Love's
presence. And seeing their true essence reminds us that they're all everybody we perceive is also an extension of Source. And looking at them as innocent, we see ourselves as pure spirit.
And there's no other way. You can't see someone else as guilty and yourself as the Christ. It's not possible. It's, this is an all or nothing deal. It's saying this course will either be accepted completely or not at all. It's one or the other. You either go all in and you say, right, I'm innocent, everyone else is innocent. We all this one Christ self, all the Son of God, all extensions of this pure formless awareness of perfect love. That's my truth. That's what I believe. Or we're all sinful. We're all guilty. We're all damned. We're all condemned. And there isn't really an in between. You can't have, a little bit of love and a little bit of condemnation. So it's the only thought system that makes sense. The Holy Spirit's thought system, and it's a complete alternative that disagrees with the ego's thought system entirely, completely. You can't reconcile them. You must choose. Unfortunately, Yeshua is just giving it to us straight. He's not fudging it. He's not saying ridiculous things like make friends with your ego and the ego has some kind of function or purpose. He's just saying no, it has no purpose or function at all. You must choose against it entirely. And being very, very clear over and over and over again. He's telling us the same thing because he knows, it's so tempting to not do that, to try and compromise and fudge it and try and give the ego some kind of meaning and purpose and carry on judging a little bit and trying to love, but you still got all these judgments going on in your mind, which separate you from your source. And he's saying none of that's going to work. You've been doing that forever. The entire of time and space is the story of that futile attempt to find some kind of happiness and salvation in the dream, and it's not going to work. So only the absolute truth given to us straight as he's giving it to us is going to work. Which says, I'm very grateful for it. We've got this and very explicit, very clear. And honestly, it's the only thing that makes logical sense. Everything else just doesn't make sense because you have that fundamental split, that duality, that doesn't make sense. Okay, well, how can you have a God of love and fear? God is love, but God created the world that's insane and upside down. There's all this pain and suffering and hatred and attack and misery and sickness and death that goes on here. So how could that be a loving God could do that? It doesn't make any sense, does it?
No.
And it doesn't matter, like how you try and fudge that. Oh, well, God did it to teach us lessons, or it's like, no, a loving God wouldn't do that. So the only answer to the paradox is, well, one of them is true. One reality is true, and the other one's not. It's just a complete delusion. And that's the answer he's giving us again and again. Every lesson, it's the same answer, just given in a different form, different angle on it, different perspective, to help us to awaken. And eventually we go, okay, I accept it. I can't deny this anymore. This logic, you can't break the logic of the course. People try. You can try and you try and fudge it, but if you stick to it and you keep reading it, and not having selective perception, which is a danger. People just don't read things they don't want to read. Then you can't help but accept it. Ultimately, you must accept the truth.
Yeah.
And only that. And that's his purpose, is to teach you that, like get you to accept it, so that you come back home. You go back into oneness, and you join him in the Christ mind, as one, and help all your brothers to do that as well. Okay, so any other thoughts, questions on the lesson?
I just see the lesson. Okay. Yeah, innocence is quite different to sinlessness, isn't it? Much more meaning.
Yeah, I thought it's because the one is what he's defining there in the first one, my brother's sinlessness. He's defining innocence in terms of the sin.
Yeah.
Sinlessness. Yeah. So don't define innocence in terms of what's false. It makes much more sense to me to say, well, just go for what's true. And innocence then is it pointed to what's true. It doesn't give any reality to the sin.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite typical of the course, isn't it? It can phrase things in the negative.
It does it a lot,
Yeah, why does it do that? If it's not right, why would Jesus have done that?
Well, I suppose what he's trying to do is he's trying to highlight in our minds, the sin. And then he's saying, well, actually, you can be sinless. Remember, the framework is let's become aware of error and then let go of error, which is probably why it calibrates, at 600 rather than at 1,000, as we talked about.
Yeah.
But as an alternative, I'm giving the original as well, it's quite useful to go, okay, but actually instead of sinless, I'm actually innocent. Yeah. And there's kind of there's only the innocence. So, it's part of then accepting the truth rather than denying the illusion.
Okay.
And the two go hand in hand. To accept the truth, you must deny the illusion. So you can't accept innocence until you've denied guilt. So I guess he's going, well, we're gonna say sinless because you have such a belief in sin that I need to tell you that you are sinless. He's addressing people, remember, with sick minds.
Yeah.
You believe in the reality of sin and guilt. So he's saying, okay, well, I'm meeting you where you are, and now you are sinless. But if you sort of moved a little bit beyond that, the idea that you're innocent can be maybe more helpful. So you've got both, and I think the idea of doing the course in this way is read both. Read the original, read the alternative, and maybe the alternative just gives you another perspective on it, which is the whole point. So okay, so you're not invalidating. This isn't incorrect. It's just there is another way of looking at it as well, and a more positive way. Just go for the innocence rather than the sinlessness, because the innocence is all it really is, and you're not defining it then in terms of the negative, which doesn't even exist. So, use it if you find it, use the alternative if you find it helpful. That's what it's there for. And then if you want to just read, Sally's read the first paragraph, but you're welcome to read it again if you want.
I'll just do the alternative. Letting go is a choice. I never perceive anyone as they really are, for that is far beyond perception. What I perceived in others is merely what I want to perceive, because it stands for what I want to be the truth. However much I seem to be impelled by outside events and circumstances, it is to this alone that I respond. What is the this in that?
It is to this alone I respond. What I perceive in others is merely what I want to perceive. What I want to perceive. That's what it's referring to.
Okay.
My perception as what I want to perceive is to this alone that I respond. What I want to perceive. So it's come down. You see why it boils down to desire. You look at the instrument for peace. It comes down to your desire, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay, it's all right. I remember that one. Thank you.
Desire, prayer. Your perception is based on your desire.
Okay. I choose to perceive what I choose to focus on, and it is this I perceive, and only this. Everyone's innocence shows me my own, and having chosen to perceive everyone in its whole awareness, it is inevitable that I do perceive it.
Yeah. So a very simple message. I choose to see, I perceive what I choose to perceive. If I choose to perceive people as guilty, then that's my choice. I'm choosing to perceive from the guilty self-concept. Choose to perceive them as innocent, I'm choosing to perceive them from the Christ self. And whichever choice you make is going to strengthen your self-concept one way or another. Which again is shown here. It all comes down to self-concept. What do I choose to be in the situation? So perception is a choice, not a fact. All of this is a choice, not a fact. Irrespective of the externals that seem to happen, I always have a choice as to how I process it and interpret it. And as I said before, that's your fundamental power.
Yeah.
Which is the essence of any transformation, to be able to change your perception and change your self-concept. So it's not just like some teachings talk about the level of just behavior, and they're going for behavioral change. I remember I did an executive coaching presentation, and they were talking about, well, we want behavioral change. So the observed behaviors and outcomes, performance outcomes. But that's not really anywhere deep enough. You actually want to change in the person's self-concept. That's true transformation. So it's got to happen on the individual interior level. And then that will naturally change behavior. Because if someone's thinking has changed, then their words and their actions will change by default. Just going for behavioral change through some kind of training on this, okay, well, we'll give you the skills, we'll train you how to do this and this and this. That seldom works. It doesn't seem to work sustainably, because if there's no transformation in mind, then that behavior is not really in alignment with that person's self-concept, and so they will discard it. They won't carry on with it. They have to accept. You could start there, but then from that behavioral change, you would have to start pushing into this and saying, okay, this is the start, but we need to really look at this. But if you just keep it to the level of the external, then you can't ever expect that behavior to be lasting if it's in contradiction with the person's self-concept, which is why a lot of behavioral change programs just really don't work, because the the self-concept of people, and the culture on a collective level. The culture doesn't support it. The culture doesn't support that behavior. So you have to change the culture before you can change the behavior. I mean, in practice, it's going to be both together. You know, you start changing culture, and then you say, okay, well, that's got to be reflected in the behavior. But inside out is better than outside in. You know, doing an intervention just on the behavioral level, and then saying, okay, we need to look at the culture. It's kind of a bit backwards. It's like putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
So you start changing the culture, and then you say, okay, let's look at the systems and the behavior as an expression of that. But yes, we need to have integrity. But people, if there is a genuine transformation, people will naturally change. They're going, I don't want to do, you know, what I did before because it doesn't make sense to me anymore. So you don't have to convince them then. It's coming from them. They understand, and they then behave that way because of their higher understanding. So this stuff's very applicable in you know, the corporate world, organizations, all this kind of stuff is very applicable and helpful. Okay. So Sally said she could only go to past 12:30.
It works for me, actually. I've got some things I need to get done. I'm trying to get out of this house sale.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
again.
All right. So shall we just end it here with a little prayer of thanksgiving? Just 2 minutes. We've done a meditation already. So just
that's good.
Close your eyes, take a nice deep breath in. Just breathing in the essence of this innocence that today's lesson points to. It is your own true awareness, a pure formless awareness of perfect love. It is totally pure, it is formless, there is no sin and guilt. Nothing ever went wrong. And just accept that this is the truth of you, your own awareness, and everyone else. Say, I choose to perceive only this innocence. I choose to perceive everyone's innocence, my own innocence. Breathe that in, this innocence, this true awareness into every pore, every cell of your body, every part of your mind, every fiber of your being is in this innocent, true self. So just anchor this innocence in, remind yourself that everyone is this in their core. It doesn't matter what they're behaving like. The truth of them is that they are innocent, and your job is just to remind yourself of it, to see that. Perceive that and only that, and that's how you stay connected to your own innocence. So it is said, so it is done. Practice today's lesson well. Using the breath break I've sent you. There's a longer meditation you can listen to this evening as well. And that should keep you connected with this innocence that is your true nature and reality. So it is said, so it is done, and just open your eyes and continue on with your day in this innocent, expanded state. So thanks for joining at the end. Jackie, no session tomorrow, so Sunday, I was thinking Sunday afternoon, maybe.
Later afternoon. I've got something on with Lynn.
Yeah, maybe like 5 o'clock or something.
5 o'clock, yeah, that's good.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll confirm that on Sunday morning. I'll send out a message, but I'll aim for that.
Lovely. Fantastic.
If you can tell Sally, that'd be great.
I will do. Lovely.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you very much. And you. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Stay. Okay, so that brings the session to a close. The next session will be on Sunday, probably 5 o'clock UK time. That's 7 p.m. SA time. Watch the Telegram message and the email for details about that. hope to see you then, and have an innocent and peaceful